Just the other day, we got news of yet another doping scandal coming out of the country of Kenya. Getting this kind of news is no surprise, as Kenya has unfortunately had somewhat of a performance-enhancing drug crisis over the past few years, with many big names and even a few world record holders getting busted. But what made this particular case so different and so interesting is that the accused athlete, Diana Chepkorir, absolutely slammed the athletics integrity unit while being investigated. And to put it lightly, she did not hold back her criticisms, calling their work against her as an act of terrorism, naming their suspension against her as a breach of her fundamental rights, and she even went as far as to claim that the AIU lacks accountability and integrity in their institution. Things honestly get pretty heated during these back and forths, but to set up this entire situation and see how it all began, we need to go back to February of 2024. At the Faxca Castellón 10K in Spain, Chepkorir achieved an incredible time over the 10K distance, achieving a mark of 29 minutes and 56 seconds, making her one of only 21 female athletes to ever break the 30-minute barrier for the 10K. This is obviously an insanely fast time, and to put it into perspective, this pace equates to a 4-minute and 49-second mile for the entire 10K, or 2 minutes and 59 seconds per kilometer. This kind of time places Chepkorir into extremely rarefied air, and perhaps this one performance was the race that officially put her in the Athletics Integrity Unit's radar, because from May 2024 through March of 2025, they began a thorough reporting of her biological passport, which, in the words of the World Anti-Doping Agency, is used to monitor selected variables over time that indirectly reveal the effect of doping, as opposed to the traditional direct detection of doping by analytical doping controls. Basically, instead of getting a confirmed positive test, this passport allows the tracking of atypical changes in an athlete's system, and abnormal changes are almost universally found to be associated with performance-enhancing drug use in these scenarios. And earlier this year, on June 18th, Chepkorir was officially notified of her atypical finding in her biological passport. But instead of providing a detailed explanation of what happened or what may have happened, she chose a different strategy in her response. For her full response, she wrote, "I received your notices with utmost shock and disbelief, and I wonder why it came almost the same time with my fallout with my management Volaire, that did not even mention of my anti-doping violation in their communication. In your notice ladder, you didn't attach a certified copy of the lab report that should have been from the accredited laboratory, and secondly, the authenticity of the report from the expert, which should have been also attached and be established if indeed the said panelists are nonpartisan. Anything scientific is beyond all who are not experts on the said field, and on the other hand, things happening in a human body can also be beyond scientific knowledge." I'm gonna skip to the end here because she says, "Take notice that I shall take this matter to the High Court of the Republic of Kenya, where this matter will be interrogated 360% and justice will be delivered." I gotta say, off rip, this is a confident and very bold response. You just do not see this kind of thing in these reports here. And while this is very likely only going to make her case much worse, it's kind of impressive to see. It takes a lot of hubris, and perhaps it takes somewhat of a misunderstanding of the situation to respond like this. And of course, in rebuttal to this kind of response, the AIU systematically went back and clarified any confusion to Chepkorir, stating that the AIU is following firmly established guidelines, and they also make sure to point out that each expert panel that reviewed her passport is in fact independent from WADA, as not to have any conflict of interest. Now, in response to the AIU, Chepkorir again put her foot down, and she demanded answers, stating that this is the wrong application of WADA, and she also claimed that her samples were wrongly placed, stating that she's never been to these areas where the testing went down. Now, just so all of you know, this report is extremely thorough, as AIU reports tend to be, so if you want to take a closer look at this entire document, I'll put the report in the description down below. But to put it simply, the AIU spent a great deal of time communicating back and forth with Ms. Chepkorir. This back and forth took months and months, and they explained how all labs were accredited by WADA or approved by WADA for analysis of blood. They explained how each independent panel unanimously had had the opinion that she was likely doping from her passport changes. They gave her various forms of AIU instructions, and they even hired a third independent party to be as thorough as possible. And this third party also had the exact same opinion that the passport was likely associated with a doping process. Now, you might think that this was the nail in the coffin. You might think that getting these extra efforts together from the AIU would only further bring an athlete to the realization that they are in fact guilty, and this is especially the case given that if you admit guilt, this will lessen the punishment by an entire year. But in this case, this is the exact opposite of what happened. Because after the AIU confirmed all of this information, we officially got the longest message and longest response that I have ever seen in a doping case like this. And my goodness, this is quite the response. Now, I'm going to slowly scroll through this so you can read everything all together, but I will hit some highlights here so you can see. To kick it off, she claimed that this suspension was an act of terrorism and that the AIU has failed to sufficiently tackle her correspondence. She also claimed that the AIU inflicted this mental torture on her so that she can loosely panic and simply give in. She then went on to list out individually every glaring issue surrounding this process and how it does not meet the standards that would need to be met in order to follow up with this kind of ban or suspension. First up was the burden of proof. While the passport does have crude numbers to describe her levels over time, the ultimate decision from the experts technically does have to be an opinion. And this left enough room for Chep Career and her team to deem the word opinion as a dangerous way to confirm such changes, even if 3 different panels did agree the same result. Up next was the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and in this section she claimed that her fundamental rights were violated as this presumption was compromised, when in fact it was just them stating that she was initially suspended given the passport changes, and that report had nothing to do about guilt versus innocence. Up next was confidentiality, and this one was quite weird, because she claimed that the element of confidentiality applies both ways, and given that her passport changes and her initial suspension was shared with the general public, she then made the bold claim that she would reciprocate by leaking all materials in this engagement to investigative journalists both local and international. Man, making a threat to the AIU is quite the bold move. Up next was irregularities detected, stating that the last sentence was deliberately cut off at some point in this document, and this was done in order to conceal their admission over the misplaced locations of something that she raised. And this is objectively not true because they simply state that the next sentence was found on the next page. Up next was the expert opinion, and this section was basically just used for Chep Career to say that given that she was not given every single piece of information on this matter, the results should not be taken seriously. And in the last section here, she also states that she can authoritatively say that the results were fabricated by bad people within the system to kill her athletics career. Now, we're almost done here, so stay tuned because it does get pretty crazy. Next is the High Court Petition of Nakuru. Now, this is a reference to the court in Nakuru, Kenya, and here Chep Career essentially states that since the AIU did not go through this high court in Kenya, they're basically dodging a crucial step in the process, even though the AIU is not required to do this in the first place. And then she goes on to make a small kind of threat once again, stating that since they dodged this court, it shows that the AIU is fearing their malpractices being exposed, which will eventually occur. And lastly, Chep Career discusses how Kenya has been labeled as non-compliant and therefore cannot be included in this report, which has also been overturned, which basically makes this point moot. And lastly, in her conclusion, she states that they are simply just trying to kill her career and that this strategy is only done to shame her in the public light. I have seen many doping reports from the AIU over the past few years, and there have been various attempts to overturn suspensions. We've seen people tamper with evidence, we've seen people lie about their locations, forging documents, and even forging plane tickets, and at one point we even saw someone trade with another individual posing as that person so that they could give a sample that was not positive. There are many strategies to try to get out of trouble, and sometimes it's even done because they really do have an excuse, whether they have medication that they're taking or that they simply forgot to update their location because of an emergency. But this This has to be the weirdest, strangest, and craziest way to go about this that I have ever seen. This is basically threatening the AIU over and over for malpractice, and as you likely have imagined, it did not work. Because at the end of this article, we can see that Chep Career has officially been banned for 4 years, and she will have to forfeit a lot of prize money and a lot of racing wins. So yeah, this was quite weird and very much entertaining to some degree, and I just thought you all would like to see it. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time.